The DOJ launches a federal probe after Antifa militants riot at TPUSA Berkeley event honoring Charlie Kirk. Again, this is an event honoring the life of a man who was murdered by left-wing radicals. We shouldn't be surprised that left-wing radicals protested it. That's apparently what time it is in the United States right now. The U.S. Department of Justice Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, announced on Tuesday that an investigation has been launched into a violent attack against individuals attending a Turning Point USA event at UC Berkeley, perpetuated by the designated terrorist group Antifa. The FBI-led Joint Terrorism Task Force is also investigating the incident, according to the Justice Department. So this comes from the Post-Millennial. Yesterday on the show, we covered this as breaking news as we saw them doing this. Unfortunately, Antifa violently rioting and attacking people who are trying to peacefully espouse their values has become a bit banal at this point. We're so used to it that it's hard to even comment on it anymore without sounding like broken records. But nonetheless, sometimes you beat a dead horse. Sometimes that dead horse needs to get its butt kicked. So let's talk about that, what these people are doing, what needs to be done about this, and why it hasn't been done if it hasn't.
Have you seen at the protests that they're showing up in front of the ICE facilities and they have all these like blow up suits of the cartoon
Yes,
characters?
that's right. Yeah. And did you see when ICE sprayed one of them with pepper spray up in the flap?
I really want to put a thought bomb in one of the breathing holes, man.
That whole thing is designed to change their image.
Yeah.
The idea of the like mask wearing little ninja, with the hood on and they're running around and starting fires and causing all these problems. That's the image that Antifa burned into people's brains. So they basically burned into people's brains that they're a revolutionary anarchical group that's there to damage property, destroy things, and perhaps even carry out incentives for political assassination.
That's right.
And so
before we get started, we got a great sponsor. It is Beam Dream. Head over to shopbeam.com, my friends, /Tim Pool, and pick up your Beam Dream, your nighttime sleep blend. Helps you sleep better. I drink this stuff every night. I swear by it. It is delicious. It's got melatonin, magnesium, L-theanine. It is fantastic. And right now, you will get their early Black Friday sale, 50% off. I really do think it's fantastic. And this is legit. I do drink it every single night. My sleep improved. I didn't even know it could improve. And now for the past several months, I've been having consistently good sleep. And you guys know that I recently had a baby. So that's pretty impressive. Good stuff, Beam Dream.
This kind of move to try to change by being more kid-friendly and this and that actually is hurting them more than anything else. And I'll give you my reasoning. The No King's Day riots, what a disappointment. The second go-around, what a disappointment. So we watched the first go-around, and it's like, at least they were doing stuff. They
were all old, though, even then.
But you can get your eyes on you if you're doing stuff. If you're like throwing lighting rocks off and
fire.
You're lighting stuff on fire. You're throwing rocks on the police cars. You're wrecking everything. That brings the views. So at least that brings the views to your point. But now them becoming like the more kid-friendly leftist weirdos, nobody cares about that.
It's a weird schizophrenic thing, too, where they're trying to be both at the same time. Half the time they're dancing and wearing these costumes, and we're just silly and trying to have a good time, and who could be mad at our peaceful protest? And then the other half of the time, they're throwing bricks at police officers.
Or they're doing cringe dancing.
Yeah, and
they do a lot of cringe dancing.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. When you mentioned Antifa being kid-friendly, my first thought was impossible. There was someone on Twitter who said this very funny joke. They said Antifa is the militant arm of the sex offender registry.
Totally.
Love it.
So look, the point that the point of what they're doing is they want to mock the establishment, right? So if they, and I saw this, I forget where the book was, but it was one of the essentially the handbooks of how you should conduct basically counter
the rules for radicals.
Is that rules for radicals?
I'm not sure if it was specifically in rules for radicals, but the point is they want to have pictures of riot police clad police, right? Riot control clad police grabbing a dude in a blow up doll suit.
That's right.
Because it looks comical. Then the propaganda they can put out is, look, we're just out here being silly, having fun, protesting the authoritarians, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now, you don't see that the guy that was in the blow up suit was just hurling Molotov cocktails, right? You don't see that he was just throwing bricks at police. Whatever the violent action that he just took. The point is they want the people to see pictures of a silly-looking guy getting wrapped up by militant,
Scary
police.
militant police, yeah.
So there is a point to them getting dressed up like that, and it is all about propaganda.
Yeah, well, it is. It's all about image, and that's only one aspect. The other aspect, so you'll see the U.S. military does this a lot. They'll change uniforms, and one of the reasons they change uniforms is because if there's might be imagery associated with a certain uniform that brings bad thoughts in the American public or in people abroad, they switch the look out, right? That's the whole point. Militaries all over the world do this, by the way. An example, when you think AK-47, what do you think?
That's right. Yeah, we think like Middle Eastern Taliban fighters.
Exactly, or Russians, right? Or it's the
Yes.
bad
The bad
guys.
guys.
But the
We
Russians
think
aren't.
bad guys, and so if the bad guys they start switching their weapons around and things, you might think that they're a little less bad.
Well,
and this is what's going on with Antifa. It's the same thing.
I reckon that maybe ICE should counter signal them with like a Power Rangers outfit.
Don't wear
That'd
the
be
white
incredible.
one.
And they just go out and just do all this number when they're arresting them.
Even
Mortal
better,
Kombat.
dude, like one of those Power Ranger mecha suits where they
Yeah.
all combine
Yeah.
together and then they're just they just have a giant net and they're able to scoop.
Listen, like I said, it's
up.
fine. Just don't wear the white Power Ranger outfit. That'll get you, it'll get you into trouble.
Well, this is funny. You mentioned this, how we have like certain psychological attachments to specific images and firearms. This is one of the reasons that we knew that Biden leaving all of our weapons in Afghanistan was pure incompetence, because if they wanted to arm them, they would have given them AKs so that people thought the Russians did it, or they didn't look too deeply into
Yeah.
where the weapons came from. The fact they would never intentionally give them American M4s ever.
Right.
No, and the other reason behind this this image thing is I do think that it's part of a recruitment protocol. So if you want to raise the next little generation of terrorists, domestic terrorists, by the way, let's call them what they are.
Yeah.
Domestic terrorists. You want to incentivize them to come in young. So that's another part of this. It's a mass propaganda. He's right.
Well, they kind of need to, because
Yeah, they
right
do.
now it's all old hippie boomers.
That's exactly right.
And a lot of them, like during the day, because Andrew was covering this live on the Crucible, and during the daytime, they were doing like a whole Rainbow Skittles parade, topless. There was guys with their banana hammocks out in front of kids and everything else. So they always have to throw that in too. They always got to make it into something, Skittles and rainbows and
Yeah.
on top of everything else.
inclusive and
Yeah.
equitable.
Every single time. I was in Europe recently and I stumbled across two protests, one in Berlin and then one in Budapest. And the one in Berlin, it was a climate change protest, but of course it's just inundated with trans flags and all of these different
Yes.
transformers. And this was just by pure chance. I was doing a vlog and I came across it. And then same thing in Budapest as well. And it was, they were calling Viktor Orban a fascist and they had the Ukraine flags and everything. But then of course, all the Skittles flags, and I was like, they got to make everything
Yeah.
about the Skittles.
Well,
Fake
the
it,
issue
yeah.
time.
The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. So
Yeah.
the point is to disrupt the existing order in order to.
This is why you see an amalgamation of it. It's always about not only climate change, but mass immigration
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Skittles
Yes.
and all these sorts of things.
Yeah,
It all links
it's a club
together.
for people who hate their dads.
Yeah,
Yep.
very good.
Exactly. You're not mad at me. You're mad at your dad. That's why they always talk about the patriarchy.
Feminists-
This is a huge part of it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Feminists frequently get really upset because, like, they'll be like, "Hey, this is an issue about women," and then some other part of the left will slide in. And feminists are like, "No, this is about
me."
effing women. Why are you, blah blah blah?" Which is part of you see. That's why you see the schism between trans people and actual
Rad
like
femmes.
rad
Which,
femmes and stuff like that.
Well, in part. Oh yeah, go
Well, I
ahead.
was going to ask if Rachel taught the himbo the word amalgamation. Like I was super impressed. Yeah.
5 syllables.
Good job.
Well, but this
That
is
was
also,
good.
I think, another part of the reason that you always see the pride flags there is because they know that they have to warp people and make them sexually perverted in order to blind them so that they'll go along with their agenda. Sin dulls the intellect. And when you say, I'm going to take the most intimate part of who I am and orient that towards short-term pleasure instead of the logos, what is reasonable, what God actually created me to do, you become a perfect slave. And so that iconography is always going to follow these movements. And we know historically, when you have sexual revolutions, you almost always end up with very intense violence, because when people stop restraining their passions, first their lustful passions, they stop restraining their wrath. And that's the step that we're on right now.
Or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're talking. You're talking about Christian ontology, and so you're right when you're talking about the telos or teleology, or moving out of it and into the passions. One always leads to the next, to the next, to the next. So I totally agree with this, but I do think what you're seeing right now is the formation of these groups are now getting a lot of pressure on them, especially from the Trump administration. The move to call them domestic terrorists gives the Trump administration a huge amount of leverage to start using law enforcement in very creative ways and military assets in very creative ways.
So do you think they're actually going to do anything about this?
I think they are.
I hope you're right.
I think that they are, and I think that it's all quiet at the moment. But it's because of that. I think that this push now, the recruitment push and the image change push, is because they're terrified that now Trump may be able to use much better LEO resources to go after them being kind of labeled domestic terrorists, and that getting into the public consciousness.
Yeah, because whenever there's a Democrat administration in place, these people are pictured as heroes, right?
Yeah.
They're liberation heroes. They're fighting for freedom. They can never, when you ask them, I mean, how many viral videos are there of someone asking them, why are you here at the protest today? And they're like, I don't really
Stuff.
I don't like rules. You know, they don't really know.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
looks AstroTurf, so AstroTurf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It usually is.
Yeah,
There's
and I-
usually like, you know.
I keep on bringing it back to the
foundation
European
money
ones, but it's just
funding.
interesting when you see them all around. I saw another one in Serbia, and the government, there was a big protest going on in Belgrade, you guys might have seen over the past few months, and the government was paying for a whole entire encampment of protesters across the road from the Parliament building. And we walked past it and we were just looking, and they were all just completely paid protesters. And it makes me wonder every time I see a big European sort of revolution like this, is it a color revolution? Who's paying for it? Where's the money coming from?
Well, and I mean, the great myth is that revolutions occur because at the grassroots,
Right.
poor and working class people decided that the revolution needed to happen.
Yeah.
It's virtually always either wealthy or upper middle class people who start agitating, and then they try to use their influence to get people beneath them in social
We were
status
just
to
talking
agitate.
about this the other day.
Hasn't the status really been the historic status that it's elites
Yeah.
who want to move to the next step in power
Yes.
that are often going down to the rabble and telling them about how that guy over there, he's eating way too much of their steak
So,
while
yeah.
there's a massive one on his plate
Yeah.
as well.
There's,
Exactly.
That's 90% of what my research is about how social movements are not grassroots. They're almost always social engineering from the top down. A good example of what Jake was talking about with those European protests and like Gloria Steinem was first recruited by the CIA
That's right, she was.
out of Smith College to go to Europe and go to these youth festivals and promote feminist propaganda. It's almost always bought and paid for. It's almost never
And then these
grassroots.
Christian European we were just talking about this the other day. We were talking about the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia and about how Pol Pot, the mythology of it is that they were guerrilla warfare fighters, the Khmer Rouge, and they were banished out to the hills for a very long time. And this did happen. And then the CIA sort of organized bombings of northern Cambodia, radicalized a lot of the peasants. But Pol Pot himself was an aristocrat. He went to school in France and was educated by the communists in France. He was I think his uncle was a prince or something like that.
And that's why he was killing all of the people who had any sort of education, because they could do counter propaganda and assist. I mean, both sides need their elites. Conservatives have always been wrong about this, right? We do need to have smart people in conservative politics who are intellectuals. We do actually need that. It's just that now the idea of stodgy intellectualism is like, well, that's boring and stupid and we hate it. And I don't blame, but I think intellectualism itself can be presented in a different way than that type of
Yes.
thing. But that's what Pol Pot was worried about, right? He was worried about educated people being able to push back against
Anybody
messaging.
with glasses, anybody with an education, anybody who had any standing in society, they just killed them.
Well, and this is exactly right. Part of the problem, too, is that, and this is not just a modern problem, though we see it often in the modern world, it's a human problem. But the reality is authority exists for the subordinate, and you should recognize as a noble person in a position of authority. The reason I'm an intellectual is to actually meet the needs of the people. This is essentially division of labor. I'm extremely intelligent. I also have the time and resources to study and learn things that your average person can't, so I can help direct society in a positive direction. But intellectualism does not have that same status that it used to among people, because we know the intellectual class does not care about us and hasn't cared
And they have
about
no
us.
real world
Marxists
experience.
have captured the institutions in America.
Yes.
So we've just surrendered academia to Marxists.
And you look at like the way in which a lot of them operate. It's like they've never really existed in the real world. Imagine going from high school, being a high achieving student, to the university, and then after that you get a position as a professor, and then eventually you get what's it called when they get like the high standing position?
Tenure?
Tenure.
Yeah.
You get tenure. You've actually never existed in the real world. You don't know how it works.
And I just got to say, all the teachers that I ever had in school growing up or through college, the best ones I ever had were all people who spent time in the private sector.
Yeah.
They all knew way more about the subject matter that they were teaching than the ones that hadn't.
Yeah.
Because of practical application.
Exactly.
It's not just theory
the
at
way
that
that this
point.
happens,
Yes.
the way that institutional capture happens is, I have an article about this on my Substack actually with tons of examples and citations. You get big foundations with tons of money, like the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation. There's tons of them. They're everywhere, these big, huge NGOs. And what they do is they find kind of like radical academics who are going to push the agenda they want. They'll create a position for that person or a scholarship for that person and get them seated in an institution with a lot of influence under the, contract that you're going to push this, agenda that we want. And that's how they do it. Because people think this is like conspiracy theory stuff. It's very simple.
Yes. Well, that's the
You
thing,
just-
right? Human
yeah.
systems are they're easier to manipulate in a certain respect than a lot of people think. And one of the things, I've got this buddy, Aaron McIntyre, and he's been on the show a couple times, but what he points out very often, and I think correctly so, is that democracy is essentially just ruled by mass media. You can simplify these things in a way that helps you understand it's not just this needlessly abstract and complex system. There's like buttons that you can push very easily.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. You just get some people with the right funding to create a specific scholarship or position at a university, to put some Marxist theorists that you like in there, and all of a sudden you've reshaped the minds of literally hundreds, even thousands of students.
Yep.
There's a capability crisis also, and that's getting worse and worse and worse. So, an easy example: the last time you went and got a fast food burger, you know exactly what I'm talking about with the capability crisis. Okay, but it's all sectors of society you'll find this in.
By the way, you can't show yourself at a drive-through after the show ends because they'll know that you said that. And they'll mess with your food, dude.
Exactly.
They're capable of doing
Well,
that.
let me ask you a question. Let's say that you happen to be a capable individual, and just because you're just a little bit more capable than most of the people around you, you're able to subvert an entire institution, because it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Right? Systems over time, they become kind of decadent, and the rules and processes become more important than the spirit of what those rules and processes were there for.
Yeah.
And when you just get a slightly capable person in there, they can easily bend an entire institution to their will.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is don't they kind of have incentive to be bad guys when you think about it? If you're able to so easily do that, wouldn't you easily look around and be like, well, I'm clearly the most capable person around. People should do what I say. And so it seems to me like Marxists also, they were masters of this, masters of going into institutions that had these kind of sort of rigid rules that had lost the spirit of what the rules were there for. And they just weaponized them, took them over quickly and went, well, we're the most capable. That's why we're winning. And that's exactly why society should march to our drum, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly the problem with having rules based in a high-trust society now applying to a low-trust society.
That's right.
These institutions all existed at a time where the rules made sense because people could generally trust one another. They were on board with the same projects.
Right.
We're not in that position anymore. I mean, not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
Now we're in a position where I've talked about this a lot, but we're in a position where Americanism and the ideas behind the founding are being weaponized against us, against America. This idea that anyone can come here and be American, and to be American means that you can be a Hindu socialist and become, mayor of one of our major cities or something like that.
As the founders intended, of course.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
As the founders
And then if you don't
That's what
like
they died
that,
for
if you
in the
don't
revolution.
That's what they were
like
dying
that,
for in
you're
World War II.
un-American.
That's right. That's what my grandpa fought.
Yeah.
The idea that anyone can come here and be an American was totally refuted with the Iraq War, right? The idea that we could go into Iraq, we could install Jeffersonian democracy,
Yeah, the
and
Bush
they would
Doctrine.
love it, and they would automatically turn into, republic-loving Americans was proven definitively wrong. The idea that you can take people from societies like that, bring them to the United States, and they will then become lovers of Jeffersonian democracy. They will automatically love our liberal society. me. That is flat out wrong.
great
It is
point.
totally
Yeah,
wrong.
100%.
100% wrong. And to continue to behave as such will not make people into Jeffersonian democracy lovers. It will make America more like the places that they came from. It will not make those people into Americans.
Look at Minneapolis. Look at Dearborn, Michigan. Look at New York City right now. These places are like, if you would have told, I was 21 years old when 9/11 happened. And if you would have told me then, in the aftermath of 9/11, for those of us Gen Xers and older who really remember that time period of the whole country, for the only time, in the last 25 years, we're all like really united around this idea of like proud to be an American and defending our country and like we're going to get whoever did this kind of thing. If you would have told me then that 25 years later, we're going to elect a socialist Muslim mayor of that same city that just went through 9/11, I would have never believed you.
It's
I
interesting.
would have found it impossible to believe at the time.
There were actually public opinion polls that showed that people began viewing Islam more favorably after 9/11. A large part of that was because there was this massive push by the institutions to say that we should really feel bad for victims of Islamophobia. But it's always hilarious because you can poke holes in these ways of thinking so easily. They'll say, well, 9/11 happened, but then innocent, peaceful Muslims who didn't do anything wrong got blamed. So they're the real victims.
Well,
I'm like, well, hold on. Yeah. Well, Islamophobia happened, but innocent non-Muslims who aren't Islamophobic got blamed. So we're the real victims of Islamophobia. Actually,
the UK got completely and utterly screwed by this. Islamophobia has been all the hype over the last few decades, and you've got guys like Mehdi Hassan who are at the forefront pushing that in the UK. He was there for decades as this sort of intellectual, but he's not a liberal. He poses as a liberal
or an intellectual,
and he goes and subverts the United Kingdom political system. And but we know there's videos of him saying, I view non-believers in Allah as cattle, right?
That's right.
And then he moves over to the United States, and I don't know how the left don't see this. He is a subverter through and
when
through.
you ask,
they do see it. They love
they
it.
do see it. They think
That's right.
that they want to engage in subversion with him. They believe that they will be able to convert. That they will be able to convert him to a liberal orthodoxy.
Yeah.
He will not be converted to a liberal orthodoxy. Every single time a left-leaning liberal, whatever you want to call it, person has aligned with an Islamist, the Islamists win, because once the Islamists are given power, they will cut the heads off of people
This is
that
the dilemma.
disagree.
The same dilemma that they've got in the UK at the moment. It's the feminist dilemma.
Yep.
The feminists are out there in the streets saying, mass migration, immigrants are welcome here, and then they get over there and all of the immigrants are like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, feminism, cool. And it's like they actually think, these liberals, that these people will arrive on the shores of England or America and they will all of a sudden realize their internal yearnings for democracy and for feminism and for transgenderism.
It's a fantastic point. We were discussing this the other night when we were doing debate prep. It is in fact the case that Islam hates progressives. I mean, they hate progressives. They're a special kind of hate. But if progressives are the ones advocating that we bring in more, then they will vote along those party lines.
That's right.
To get their cousins in and to get their fathers in and to get their
brother husbands.
Their brother husbands. Yeah, exactly. They'll vote to get all those people in, and then they'll look over and they'll say, okay, now we're in charge. Guess what's going to happen to you? You're exactly right. The question becomes this, though, is like it's so obvious that that's going on, right? How is it that these people are able to hold these cross-generational plans for this, and Christians are so incapable? Mm-hmm. We're so incapable of thinking about the Christians who built these hundreds of years cathedrals. It took them hundreds and hundreds of years to finish these great works. And now suddenly we're totally blind and we can't do any sort of cross-generational planning.
We've been infected by liberalism.
Yeah,
we
and
see
these
ourselves
guys,
as atomized individuals and not part of an unbroken lineage.
Yeah, these guys do, and that's what they're doing in the UK.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.